is about the people. It is about involving the listener. It's very difficult for people to move on if they haven't dealt with their trauma and a lot of what's going on for them. It was about how can I make a difference in an individual's life. But I think as young people, it's for us to come together. And that's the problem with young people. We don't want to join forces. Service can start at home. Service can start in your community, you know. We are only able to be of service if we filled our own cup. It is very important to have people in your corner but there is a reason for why it's happening. And a lot of what we go through makes us more resilient, more patient, more tolerant of others.
The Spark Plug Podcast. Unlocking your mindset.
Excellent faith, welcome to another episode of Spark Plug Podcast. This is your host, Vincent, and we're here with the beautiful TV presenter, radio broadcaster, and director of an NPO, Lehoko. How are you, my sister?
I'm good, Vinny. Thank you so much for having me. By the way, this backdrop is beautiful. Wow.
Beautiful, right?
Yeah.
It's the Val.
Yeah.
It's the Val.
Yeah. I should come here more often.
How is it been treating you?
Many years ago when I used to come to the Val more regularly, I was here for other reasons.
Yeah.
But this time around, I think, it just feels different. It's different to be here. There's a different energy. I'm also on a different frequency at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm here to share about, I hope I'll be fine with this guy with me here.
Yeah.
Don't move. But as I said, I'm here just sharing a different chapter of my life. So I'm seeing the world very differently. I'm interacting with people very differently. And of course, sharing lots of love and light.
Yeah. So for people who don't know Lehoko, who she is and where she comes from, who is Lehoko?
Wow. It's a very complex question.
Yeah, I know.
And of course, it's going to be a very complex answer.
Yeah.
But I'm first and foremost a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I do a lot of service.
Yeah.
I'm a selfless servant as well. I'm a radio broadcaster today. I'm a podcaster as well. But if anything, I kind of feel like I've been reborn. There's a different Sam that's coming out this time around, and I think what people are starting to see is the Sam that perhaps I've been shielding from the world for a long time. Yeah.
So, how did you get into broadcasting? Like you moving from Cape Town to Joburg, and not just Joburg, getting into YFM.
Wow. So there's lots of parts to what you've asked me.
Yeah.
Firstly, I wasn't born in Cape Town. I was born in East London.
Yeah.
I grew up in the UK. I lived in Pretoria. I settled in Cape Town for about 14 years.
Yeah.
I did campus radio at UCT, as you said.
Yeah.
And my big break was at YFM. I think the podcasting thing has only come now, this time around, because a lot of what we see or hear on mainstream media is very rigid, is very controlled, is very refined. We're told what to say and what not to say. And I think the beautiful thing about podcasts is that you're able to be your authentic self. You're able to extend conversations that you've previously had onto a platform such as this, which I think is a really beautiful thing. But it's taken me a very long time to get to this point where I can do a podcast, my own podcast. It started at campus radio. I was doing a show during the week at UCT. It was a lot of fun. And what I really wanted the campus radio itself to do is to treat themselves like a commercial station. So I would bring the likes of Dream Team in there, Kurichana in there, a whole bunch of artists who I'd already known.
Yeah.
And I said, why not open the station up to superstars, and I would play, some of their latest songs and whatnot. And long story short, I met up with Scoop, who really saw something in me, and I mean, he's such a work of art.
Yeah.
He's incredible. But unfortunately, at that time, it just wasn't my time,
Yeah.
So I didn't get the gig, whatever the gig was meant to be. And quite a while later, I was called back to YFM to do a show, which I eventually got. It was called Made Different, Monday to Friday, 10 to 12. And I shouldn't have left. I think I left too prematurely. I should have stayed there for a really long time.
Yeah.
But pretty much that's where things started from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how did that YFM gig come about?
Well, that was pretty much it. Initially I went to Joburg with a demo after I had met Scoop. And
was it YFM? It was at YFM at that time when we left?
Yes. He was there at the time. And then, what happened was my demo didn't make the cut. Nobody was interested.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's all about timing. When we want things to happen in that moment, it doesn't necessarily happen, you know. So what I just had to do was put it out into the universe and wait for the right time. And that's what happened, you know. A while later, I was called. Of course, there were 3 other women who were also gunning for the same slot, I suppose. And then I got the job.
And a lot of people think that getting into entertainment industry is all about looks, the voice, especially radio. You have the voice, but then what do you think that, what made you authentic? Like from you saying that you submitted your demos and all of those things, what made you authentic? Do you think it's the voice or the...
Well, the show is called Made Different. You know, let's start there. Of course, I sounded different. You know, I was from a different city. I had a different approach to how I wanted to do my show. And if anything, I really wanted to make it about the people. You know, if anything, my entire career has been centered around what the people want. Give the people what they want, you know. And because I was new, not only in the industry, but new in this place, you know, I wanted people to guide me. I wanted people to hold space for me. I wanted people to share their experiences with me, and I wanted to learn from them, you know. So, of course, I was living in a hotel for quite some time, and I was asking my listeners, you know, where should I set up? You know, where should I live? You know, and I think that there's a big part of me that understood that from the get-go. It is about the people. It is about involving the listener. You know, whatever's going on for me in my life, as soon as I switch that mic on, it becomes about the person listening, you know. And I think the show was driven by authenticity. The show was driven by inclusivity and involving everybody, you know. And the challenge lies in people who want to sound like other broadcasters, people who want to look like other broadcasters, you know. And often, you know, young women used to tell me that I inspired them to, you know, get tattoos and whatever. A bit of a badass, you know. But if anything, I think it was just that I stood out from the rest.
But you speak about people a lot, you know, what you're doing for people, your listeners, and everything. And now you have an NPO, you're the director. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so point of correction, I don't have an NPO.
You're a director.
There's an MPC that I joined quite a number of years ago. They help gender-based violence victims. And, you know, at the time, I was really looking for something to get involved in. I wanted to volunteer. And as you've so beautifully mentioned, you know, I love working with people. And I had just graduated from my studies, and it was the perfect opportunity to use those skills with people. So if I have to take it back a little bit, life coaching deals a lot with your present and your future. You know, and in an organization like that, it's very difficult for people to move on if they haven't dealt with their trauma and a lot of what's going on for them within their relationship. You know, with regards to gender-based violence, domestic violence, and that sort of thing, right? So I joined the NPC, and very, very soon I became a director. So I serve on the board. I work very closely with the founder. I do volunteer intake. I work one-on-one with members themselves. And more than anything, over and above helping members, both men and women, it's also taught me a lot about patience and tolerance and the beautiful thing about resilience, you know, and to also give people enough space to go through what they're meant to go through, you know. So it's been a wonderful experience, and I do this service on a daily basis, you know.
You speak about gender-based violence, which is an issue. What made you get into that? I want to understand that.
First and foremost, when I get into anything, or when somebody approaches me to do something, I have to do my research. I want to know who you are, what is it that you're doing, what is your vision and your mission, who have you helped, you know, what do the reviews look like, you know, are you really doing what you say you're doing? So that's first and foremost, and I loved what Rise were doing, you know, how they were helping both men and women, how they were one of the only organizations that had a legal sort of, not system per se, but how they had legal volunteers helping with things like maintenance and, you know, court orders, protection orders, and that sort of thing. And I love that, because when we find ourselves in these situations, it's half of us don't even know what to do. You know, we don't know who to call, we don't know the procedures. I mean, do you even know what a J88 is? Exactly. You know? So it's about understanding the system, understanding who to talk to, understanding the processes, what you need, and that sort of thing, you know. But back to your question, you know, I loved what Rise was doing and how they were helping. And for me, again, it was about how can I make a difference in an individual's life? How can I connect with an individual? And how can I use the skills and expertise that I've gained to help, In the organization, there are different volunteers with an array of skills and expertise. Some are psychologists, some are social workers, some are psychology students, others like myself are life coaches. So as a team of volunteers and as a pool of volunteers, how can we help each of these members, And it's amazing the level of unity. It's amazing how willing and open-minded, people in the organization really are. And yes, I understand that it's about the issue of gender-based violence. I understand that. But then again, we can only do so much. And if we make small changes and we make an impact on a few individuals, we're hoping that they're able to impart that knowledge onto others and hold space eventually once they've, dealt with their own challenges, help somebody else. And that's what the organization does. It allows you to fill your cup to eventually help others.
Do you think the government is doing enough?
Well, I don't have much to say about the government, because, I'm torn between a rock and a hard place. Firstly, both my parents were struggle stalwarts. They fought for many of the rights that you and I have today, right? They fought in the struggle. They worked in government for a really long time. And unfortunately, it came to a point where they both had to leave because of what's happening, And it also says a lot about their individual morals. It talks about ethics. It talks about their principles and values and how theirs are not aligned with the government, So, of course, we're all unhappy at the moment. But I think as young people, it's for us to come together. And that's the problem with young people. We don't want to join forces. We want to be better than each other, and we want to compete against each other, So,
What you're saying is so sentimental because our podcast is all about unlocking our mindsets, people's mindsets.
I love it.
What you're saying, it opens up a lot of people's mindsets and giving them a perspective. So what you're saying, it touches me to do better as a person.
Yeah, I mean, Vinny, service should be a big part of everybody's life. Contribution. We should always ask ourselves, what are you doing or how are you contributing to society and the world at large, And we get very overwhelmed, we think that we have to start organizations and register NPOs, but service can start at home. Service can start in your community, The work that my mum is doing in Cape Town with young adults is phenomenal. How, disadvantaged individuals or individuals affected by substances, etc., how they come into this program and leave being leaders, they become leaders in their communities, they become role models to their peers, and that is something that as young people we need to do. At the end of the day, as I've said, we are only able to be of service if we filled our own cup, and that's the journey that I've been on. Because 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years ago, I would never have been able to do half the work I do today because I was a very selfish, self-centered, self-absorbed individual, and everything was about me. Being of service is about the people. It is about doing things out of your own without expectations. It is about doing things with intention, right? And making it about the greater good of society, right? So if you're a very selfish, entitled individual, it's not going to work, right? Because you're going to want money in return. You're going to want people to affirm you. You're going to want your name on lights, So it's really about your intentions. Are they pure? Are you doing things with intention?
Yeah. We're getting into a lot of things. I was going to ask later on,
Sorry.
But it's fine. It's fine. Is it important to have a mentor in the industry right now?
It is very important to have people in your corner who are on the same frequency as you. They want the best for you. They believe in you. They see your potential. I mean, for a long time, my godfather, used to tell me, Sam, you have so much potential. You have so much potential. And it used to irritate me, And today I understand what he meant, because I'm living up to that potential. I'm being the selfless servant that I was meant to be. I'm doing the things that I'm really passionate about. I'm trying to have a balanced life. I'm showing up more for my children. So mentorship is incredibly important. And I think what I will say to that is that it's so important to have different types of people in different areas of your life. So I have a mentor for my career. I have a life coach. I have a therapist.
Yeah.
I have a health and wellness coach. I have a personal trainer. I have a higher power. I have all these different people who help me in different areas of my life. And that's why what I've learned, most importantly, is that there are so many different parts of your life which people neglect. So everything just becomes about work and their career, and they end up neglecting their health. They end up neglecting their children. They end up neglecting themselves as individuals. So for an up-and-coming whoever, don't just focus on one aspect of your life, because all of these things that I've mentioned are different parts of your life. They make up who you are, and I'd love for us to, touch on that a little bit later in terms of these different aspects and what I do, but
Okay, let's touch on that. Let's just touch on that.
We might be here for an hour.
We have time.
Yeah.
We have time.
So, Vinny, I mean, look, my career has been amazing.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed the journey, and what I often tell people is that it is important to embrace even the challenges. There's so much in there. Like, when you're going through a really difficult time, you might not understand why it's happening, but there is a reason for why it's happening. And a lot of what we go through makes us more resilient, more patient, more tolerant of others. It makes us more compassionate.
Yeah.
And as I've said, my journey is a very, it's a never-ending journey.
Yeah.
And I have to always look at things from a holistic point of view, but I also have to learn to see myself through the eyes of others.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but certain people. So my career, very important to me, and grateful for the fact that I'm back on radio and I get to do what I love every Monday to Friday. Money is also a big part of my life, and I think everybody should think about that, Am I saving money? Am I being responsible? What am I spending my money on? Am I putting money away to contribute to my dreams and goals? Health is another aspect of your life.
And people neglect it.
Exactly.
It's health.
So no one is saying, Vinny, you have to be in the gym every day. Maybe 3 or 4 times a week. But health is so important.
Yeah.
Am I getting enough rest? Am I, eating well? Am I drinking water? Am I, feeding my body in a good, positive way? Our relationships with our children and our family members is another aspect of our lives, and it's for the individual to understand that you are in control of your feelings, your actions, your behavior, not other people. So for myself, am I open and honest with my family? Am I confiding in them? Am I making time for them? Am I opening up to my family members? The same thing with friends. Do I have a good social circle where I am honest and open and I confide in my friends? Another aspect of your life, Vinny, is contribution. As I said earlier, a very big part of my life, being a selfless servant. How much am I giving back to society? I'm a director in the NPC. I've just adopted an orphanage where I help 14 orphans between the ages of 5 and 18. I do service within, my own personal life. Another aspect of your life, Vinny, is recreation. That alone time, me time, doing things that make you happy, doing things that fulfill you. Spirituality, another big one. Whatever it is or whomever it is that you believe in, are you making that conscious contact with your higher power on a daily basis? That's the spiritual aspect. And I think in my career, leading up to, even after my father passed away, I was spiritually bankrupt, where I was running on self-will and I was not handing my life and my will over to this higher power to say, please help me, And the final aspect of your life, Vinny, is having a good self-image, And I want, young people to understand that self-image is not about what you look like or what brand you wear. I spoke about brand with you earlier, but it's more than that, Having that good self-image is, do I love myself? Do I respect myself? Do I believe in my capabilities? Do I affirm myself on a daily basis? Because what we're doing is we're posting a picture or a video, and we're looking for other people to affirm who we are. You are good at this. You are good at that. You must do this. You must do that. But it's the individuals who should affirm themselves. When I wake up in the morning, I need to tell myself, Sam, you're doing good. You're good at what you do.
You want validation from other people.
Absolutely. So it's self-affirmation that we should be doing more of, and not searching for that from other people, Because then what it means is that my growth and my journey is dependent on everybody else, which is not the case. And that was my mistake in the beginning of my career, is that I was doing things based on what other people thought was good for me. And I've also done that. I've said, you should maybe do this because I think that is what's going to work for you.
Yeah.
But it's not up to me to decide. It's for your higher power to decide what is good for you and what is meant for you on your journey. So let us look at our lives from a holistic point of view, and let's look at these small portions or parts of our lives and contribute to them equally. In a day, I spend time with my family, I spend time with my friends, I pray, I go to the gym, I go to work, I look at my bank account. Should I shop today? Should I not shop today? I do a bit of service as well. And I affirm myself at the end of the day. And I say to my higher power, I'm grateful for another day clean. I'm grateful for another day sober. I'm grateful for another opportunity to be of service. I'm grateful for the opportunity to sit with you.
Yeah.
Gratitude. Gratitude actually makes everything better, to be honest.
Yeah.
Try it.
I just want to wrap up.
Oh, man. I was...
You
man.
I just want to wrap up. What's next for you from today?
Tomorrow I'm going on a boat cruise. You said what's next?
Yeah.
So in terms of what I'm up to, Vinny, I mean, I'm back on radio. I'm back on radio Monday to Friday, 9 till 11, weekdays on Mix 93.8. I love what I do. My show is great. I love my listeners. I'm also working on a compilation album where I've brought about 20 artists together to collaborate. All genres. Okay. You're looking at jazz, you're looking at soul, you're looking at amapiano, you're looking at alternative, you're looking at rock as well. And the premise behind this compilation album is that I want more young people to collaborate. I want to bring more talent together. So there's the show, and then there's this compilation album. We're trying to release it next year in April. So I'm giving myself 12 months to put this project together, and it's going to be amazing. We're starting off with a songwriting camp to allow artists to come together and see who gravitates towards who, and to make incredible music. So I'm also going to be on the album because I'm... So there's that, still doing my service within the NPC and with the orphanage as well. The podcast is called Dinner Anyone, and I'm quite excited about it because there's so many facets to this podcast. Firstly, when we go out, everyone's on their phone. When we go out, nobody's present. We're physically here, but mentally and emotionally we're somewhere else. So I really wanted to emphasize the importance of being present and holding space for other people. Like when we're doing an interview and when we're having a conversation, let's learn to hold space for people and just listen, I have very interesting conversations on my radio show, and I wanted to extend that conversation onto my podcast, because there's so much more to people. There is so much, more to certain conversations, and I want people to have the courage to go deeper. And underneath, the criminality or the manipulation or whatever the case is, there is a huge level of purity in all of us. And I want people to start, getting to that inner me, the inner Vinny, the inner Sam, So I need to peel away the guilt, the shame, the trauma, the dishonesty, and everything in between to get to who I truly am. So that is really what the podcast is all about. We shot the first episode. Our first guest is Shelton Forbes. I worked closely with him in the entertainment. He's a phenomenal dancer, choreographer, artist as well. And I think he's also been on his own journey as well, and that's why we connect so deeply. And if anything, what people, you spoke about something earlier, your slogan for this podcast about unlocking your mindset. What people also need to do is learn to shift their mindset and cultivate a different mindset. A lot of us are very negative, and the whole point is to cultivate a positive mindset. How do we do that? By feeding our mind with positivity. How am I going? If we're sitting and having a negative conversation, talking about other people, and then you join this conversation, you're going to be a part of whatever's going on. And it's so important to be self-aware and to be mindful, of others, right? So. I'm saying a whole bunch of things, but it is so important to cultivate a different mindset. And for me, I will say that it takes time. It is a process. It's a very difficult process. But if you're ready to do it, if you're courageous enough to do so, if you're willing to go back in time in order to move forward, I think you'll be okay, And surround yourself with people who share the same ideals as you, people who are genuinely supportive. All these people that are with me here today drove to the Vaal for me, And next week it could be one of them, and I'll make that same trip for them. But people can sometimes be dodgy. What? Who can I meet there? What can I get out of this thing? And luckily for me, I don't even drink. So my rider is water, Red Bull, sparkling water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and for me, what I need people to understand is that the priorities have changed. You know, what is important to me may not be important to you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, but let us learn to respect people's choices and how people live their lives and not want to dictate.
Yeah. I just want to thank you, you know, because this has been like an open mind.
Has your mind been unlocked?
It's unlocked. And I think our viewers are going to appreciate this episode.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah.
Instead of mouthful.
Yeah, I have.
And I just want to appreciate you for your time, because I know you're doing a lot. And just for your presence here, it's been amazing spending time with you here. And you bringing your child on set is like amazing.
Yeah, I love my children.
And I said like you're a supermom before.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I love my children.
Yeah.
And you know, Vinny, I see a big part of myself in them, but I learn so much from them.
Yeah.
You know, I learn the importance of being, you know, innocent. I learn the importance of honesty from my children. They are so open about how they feel, you know, and I could never do that for a very long time. I could never open up and say, I feel sad, I feel hurt, I feel vulnerable. I could never do that, and my children do it so well. Mommy, you make me angry, you know, not all the time, but it's things like that I really appreciate, you know. And
they ground you.
Absolutely, you know, and now I get to be a present mother. It's less about me and more about them, you know, and children, I mean, they pick up on everything, you know, and the what I do during the day is so important, because by the end of the day, you know, I can spend time with my children. And that's the balance I spoke about. It can't just be work, social media, work. No, it's got to be a nice balance. But I've enjoyed my time here. I'm so grateful. I love the set. The crew is amazing. The view is beautiful. The weather, like, that's why the bee was here.
It's because of me. Normally it's cold here.
No. Today was beautiful. And people must check me out on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah.
At Sam_Lehoko.
Yeah.
I'm on, you know, Instagram and Twitter. The podcast is coming out. Nooks and Burnett are doing their thing on the podcast with me. I love them dearly.